Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the only live televised debate in the Springfield mayoral race. I'm Jerry Lambert. We're coming to you from Kunz Auditorium on campus at the University of Illinois at Springfield. Here with us tonight, the four candidates vying for the city's top job. Now, there are no limits to tonight's questions. With only 1 hour devoted to such a big topic, you should not expect any softball questions. Now, there are 4 parts to tonight's debate, beginning with opening statements. Now, each candidate will get 1 minute for their opening remarks. We will then open up to questions from our media panel. Then we'll take a 2-minute break. Now, when the debate resumes, we'll take pre-selected questions from our audience and then finish with the closing statements. Now, we ask the audience to please hold your applause until instructed so we can get as many questions and topics in as possible. Now let's meet our candidates. We begin in alphabetical order. Mike Coffey Jr. is a lifelong Springfield resident. He's the current manager of Saputo's restaurant. This downtown fixture was started by his grandparents in 1948. He's a graduate of Griffin High School and the University of Illinois. Mike Coffey currently serves as chairman of the Springfield Metropolitan Exposition and Auditorium Authority Board of Directors, which oversees the Prairie Capital Convention Center. He was first elected to the board in 1997. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Coffey.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Mike Coffey. My family has lived in Springfield for the past 4 generations. We are fortunate to run a successful small business where I've learned to listen to people and understand the problems facing the city of Springfield. I made the decision to run for mayor because, like many of you, I've grown frustrated with how government works, or should I say how government does not work. I believe the next mayor will need to make some tough decisions in order to put the city on a better path. The next mayor will need to say no. We live in a city that spends more than it takes in. We cannot continue down that path. As mayor, I will make the hard decisions. I will say no to raising your taxes and yes to job creation and economic opportunity for all people of Springfield. I'm Mike Coffey, and I'd appreciate your vote.
Mike Houston has lived and worked in Springfield for the last 40 years. He has already held the title Springfield Mayor, serving 2 terms in office. He currently serves as Chairman Emeritus at Town and Country Bank. He also sits on the board at St. John's Hospital and Downtown Springfield Incorporated. He's also past chairman of the Springfield Chamber of Commerce. Mike Houston has an undergraduate degree from Illinois State University and an MBA from the University of Illinois. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Houston.
My name is Mike Houston, and I had the honor and privilege to serve as mayor from 1979 to 1987. A year ago, February, I began talking publicly about seeking the office of mayor. I felt the city needed a change in leadership, and I did not agree with the direction the city was heading. CWLP had become a political fiefdom. City government was broken. The leadership and management abilities of the next mayor will have a major impact on the direction our community takes. Springfield needs a mayor who can provide leadership to the city council and has the ability to manage city government. The mayor needs to be an experienced manager. I have 20 years of experience in CEO positions. I have over 35 years of private sector management experience and was the chairman, president, and CEO of Town and Country Bank. While I realize the city of Springfield is not a business, the principles of running a business can be applied to running government, and I have a proven record of success in both.
Frank Kunz is a lifelong resident of Springfield, graduating from Griffin High School in 1970. He served as a city alderman for the last 12 years, and during that time, he's helped pass ordinances to better inform residents about their rights as property owners. He's also voted for repeal of the residency rule, making it possible for people living outside Springfield to work for the city. For the last 33 years, Kunz has worked as a self-employed businessman after 7 years at Horace Mann. Ladies and gentlemen, Frank Kunz.
Hi, my name is Frank Kunz, and I've been the alderman for Ward 3 for the last 12 years. I was mayor pro tem for almost 4 years. And in those 12 years, we've worked with the neighborhood through the tornadoes, and I'm kind of a hands-on person, and I think the next mayor of Springfield needs to be able to roll up their sleeves and get out and see exactly what the employees are doing so that we can make changes, that the government becomes more of a service-orientated business to serve the taxpayers of Springfield, because most of the money that we've raised in taxes has not went to more services, it's went to the more benefits of the employees. And I think it's time that the citizens got their fair share of those taxes. And if you elect me mayor, that's what will happen.
Our fourth candidate of the night is Sheila Stocks-Smith. She's lived in the city of Springfield with her family for 20 years. She holds a master's degree from the University of Illinois at Springfield in political studies with a public policy concentration. From 2003 to 2010, she worked as the city's first education liaison, a mayoral appointed position. She's also served in leadership roles on the boards of the YMCA, League of Women Voters, and Springfield Parents and Public Schools. Ladies and gentlemen, Sheila Stocks-Smith.
Thank you. Almost 20 years ago, my husband and I chose Springfield as our home, and I'm glad that we did. Springfield is a wonderful community, and we have made lifelong friends and strong community connections here. I care about Springfield's future, but I'm running for mayor because Springfield, as good as it is, can be so much more. As taxpayers, you deserve a city government that respects your hard-earned tax dollars and provides effective, efficient, and high-quality city services. You have a right to expect a city government that's innovative, inclusive, and draws on the talents of all of its residents. And you deserve city leadership that listens and responds to your needs. Simply put, the same old way just won't cut it. We need a better way. My approach is simple and practical. We must balance our budget, focus on job creation and economic and community development, and restore trust and accountability to city government. Thank you.
And now let's meet our media panelists. The panel consists of ABC News Channel 20's Katie Hines, WMAY's Jim Leach, and from the State Journal-Register, Chris Wederick. Now, each media representative will ask one question, and all four candidates will answer the same question. You will have 1 minute for each answer, so please try to keep your responses concise and to the point. We begin tonight with ABC News Channel 20's Katie Hines.
Thank you, Jerry. We start our questioning tonight with Mike Coffey, Jr., then we'll proceed in alphabetical order: Mike Houston, Frank Kunz, and Sheila Stocks-Smith. First question we're looking at tonight: the city sales tax was raised from 1% to 1.75% under Mayor Davlin. He held the line on property taxes, but we saw significant water rate increases, also electric increases during that time. Will you raise any tax rates or fees during your time in office, and if so, which ones?
I will not raise taxes in my administration. I believe that the people of Springfield are taxed too much as it is. What I will do is start using the taxes that we've implemented on the people and putting them to the projects they were meant for. You know, one of those taxes was meant for infrastructure for the city of Springfield. You know, it was swept away out of the fund and not used for that. I will use those taxes for what their intended purpose is.
The simple answer to your question is no, I will not raise taxes. If we take a look at what the state of Illinois has just done in terms of raising the personal income tax by 67%, for a family of four that's taking a standard deduction, that's an extra $53 a month. Now, for a lot of people, $53 a month may not seem like a lot of money, but for somebody on a family of four making $40,000, that is a lot of money. If we take a look at the average income within the city of Springfield, we have a lot of people that fall into that category. I think that city government has to live within the existing means that it has, take our expenses and match that against existing revenue.
Again, the answer would be no. I served underneath the city council that raised all those rates. I'd like to remind people, though, that the electric rate brought them a brand new plant that's going to last the next 30 or 40 years to keep our rates where they should be. The water rates have brought in new hydrants that we needed, new mains, a new water plant. So I wouldn't consider them a tax. The city of Springfield benefited great from those rate increases. As far as the tax goes, I was an alderman who voted against rating the extra 0.25% sales tax to take away from infrastructure. And to this day, I think that was wrong to do, and I would never do that as mayor.
No, I would not raise taxes, and I've said that from the beginning of my campaign. I think enough is enough. People are struggling in the community. The economy has been bad for quite a while, and we do not need to burden people with additional taxes. I would look for savings and aggressively look for savings within our current budget by streamlining government and looking at the consolidation of departments and functions and reducing excess management.
Our second question goes first to Mike Houston, then followed by Frank Kuhn, Sheila Stocks-Smith, and Mike Coffey.
Mayor Houston, you've indicated that you have a plan for funding infrastructure but won't divulge the details until after the election. Don't voters have the right to know those plans ahead of time? And for each of the candidates, do you plan to devote more funding to infrastructure? And if so, where would that money come from? Mayor Houston.
Simple answer is that if I would talk in terms of laying out a plan using existing city resources, I would immediately be jumped on by my three opponents. I will present a plan to the general public and then to the city council after the election. One of the things that we need to do is to develop an infrastructure plan that deals with our streets and sewers. If we want to talk in terms of economic development and creating jobs, all we have to do is look at the Shields store on MacArthur and say, why is Shields building there? That's because they have the infrastructure. That will produce jobs, it'll produce sales tax, it'll produce property tax. If we go out to Sangamon and North Dirksen Parkway, that area sat undeveloped for years and years and years. When we put sewers in, suddenly we had development. You have to have a good infrastructure in order to attract economic development opportunities and job opportunities.
The way I'd approach having more streets and sidewalks fixed is we have to buy some equipment so our own people can do the jobs. The overhead by hiring the outside big companies is just killing us when it comes to how much it costs us to do per mile of street. And I think we have the manpower, we have the talent. If we buy them the equipment to do it in, we can get a lot more done for the city of Springfield than being done this way. And as far as the two developments that Mike Houston was talking about, both of them had incredible amount of tax breaks in order for that infrastructure to be put in. It wasn't done with just the regular money. And the other thing is we have to mark the MFT funds for road construction and not for the other things that past administration has done.
Could you repeat the question for me?
The question is, do you plan to devote more funding to infrastructure, and if so, where would that money come from?
You know, we have crumbling infrastructure throughout this community. It is a major problem. The Chamber of Commerce a couple years ago did a study, and tens of millions of dollars in infrastructure needs throughout this community. And it doesn't take anybody just driving around this community lately to see the condition of our streets and our sidewalks. First, I think we have to stop raiding the infrastructure fund. And again, we have to go back to making tough choices within city government where we can begin to streamline government, downsize, take those savings, put it back into frontline services, put it back into the infrastructure fund, and also back into our fund balance, which you know, much of our infrastructure fund would have to be to deal with the needs that we have. We would have to be bonding some of that, and our credit rating is so bad that we really wouldn't be able to do that. So we have to really shore up our personal finances first before we can deal with these issues.
Yeah, yes, I will provide money for infrastructure. Where will I get it? The motor fuel tax. There's $10 million in the motor fuel tax fund right now. For some reason, for the last couple of years, we have not been doing the road overlays for the last 2 or 3 years when we are typically been doing $2 million a year in road overlays. We've got to fix our potholes in the city of Springfield. But we can't do it until we go through and we wipe out the waste and mismanagement in government. And that's why I am committed to, the first step is going in and finding out where the waste is in personnel and eliminating political hires so that we can take the money that we save and invest it back in investment for the people of Springfield, and that will be through roads and infrastructure. I will fix your potholes and get your sidewalks straightened out.
My question kind of piggybacks off Jim's. Since 1950, Springfield's land area has expanded by more than 500%, but the population has only grown by a little more than 50%. How can city government keep pace with that type of growth, coupled with a much lower population growth, without continually raising taxes to support the expanded city services that are needed? Mr. Kunz, we'll start with you.
They can't. It's been proven. That's what's happened in the 12 years I've been as an alderman. We keep expanding the city of Springfield and get no revenue. The average $300,000 house brings $937 to the city of Springfield. You cannot give developers these breaks and have them build so far out like Piper Glen or Centennial Park. It's killing public works, and unfortunately, somehow we're going to have to deal with it for the next 4 years with the money we have. And one of the things you would do is you quit giving out, doing all these studies that cost a whole bunch of money, and that's where all the MFT money does go. Most of it goes for studies for future projects instead of what we need to do today. But as far as, you're going to have to stop the expansion of Springfield if you want to rebuild the inside of Springfield.
I think city government needs to redirect our efforts back toward the inner core of our city, meaning downtown, the older neighborhoods, the corridors, and the connections between, some of our historic sites and our downtown. We have been expanding to the outer fringes for quite some time. I don't believe that we should necessarily discourage or somehow limit growth, but I do think as a city priority where we need to place our emphasis is back toward the inner core. I have talked about creating an economic development, combining the economic development department and the community relations department to form a newer and more modern economic development department that we can focus on, this kind of economic development and the new priorities of bringing the development back toward the inner city and working to revitalize our areas inside.
Well, you don't want to stifle growth, but what you can do is incentivize growth within the city limits, and I think that's what we need to do. I think we need to look at some different ways that we can make it more palatable for people to develop in the inner city, through TIFs on MacArthur Boulevard. But are there building code changes that we can? And one of the things is I've gone out and I've talked to people of Springfield, they talk about how difficult it is to get anything done. We've got to be more welcoming when people want to develop the inner city. Should there be a different set of codes for older neighborhoods and older buildings? I think that's something we need to look at. We need to try and make it easier to redevelop the inner city. And if we incentivize that and do that, I think that will stop some of these problems.
As we look at Chatham, there's $300,000 and $400,000 homes being built out there. And the reason they're being built is because there's a market for those types of homes. And I think that we want to have those types of homes in Springfield. I think we also need to redevelop the inner core of the city of Springfield. But your question was, how are we going to pay for this development? One of the things that we need to do is to look at technology. Basically, city government operates today the way it did 25 or 30 years ago, yet tens of millions of dollars have been put into technology without reducing manpower. In the private sector, when you invest those kinds of dollars into technology, you do reduce your overall employment. You become more efficient. One of the things that we need to do, everyone talks about whether they're going to go through and eliminate waste. Everybody's in favor of eliminating waste. One of the things we need to do is to take a look at all the policies and procedures we have in city government where we are spending money to see how we can do a better job of it. And that's not necessarily meaning that we have wasteful spending. That means that we can do a better job of probably spending the dollars we're spending right now.
Wouldn't be a mayoral debate here without talking about Hunter Lake. Recently, the EPA said the city will have to go back to the drawing board and resubmit information. Considering the current budget situation here in Springfield, do you support the Hunter Lake project, or would you consider selling that land and scrapping the project altogether? Sheila, we'll start with you.
I think that, I think we don't have the money for Hunter Lake, first of all. And this project has been going on for a very, very long time. We've spent a lot of money on studies and studies after studies after studies. And now again, the EPA wants us to do another study. So I am not a huge proponent of building Hunter Lake. I have not completely said that I would take it off the table, though. I mean, it is very important in terms of having a reliable and safe water supply for our city. And one of the things I have proposed is just as an idea for us to think about is to keep it in its natural state, perhaps through, a natural preserve or a state park, something like that, and which would allow us then in the future, if we did need the water supply, that we would be able to create it at that time. That's just an idea. I am not going to come in as mayor and have that as a top priority. Hunter Lake would not be, the building of Hunter Lake would not be a top priority for me.
When it comes to Hunter Lake, you need more information to make that decision. Number one, how long is the permitting process, and how much more will it cost the city of Springfield? Number two, what was the cost of building Hunter Lake? So then that gets you to the decision. If we had the money, would Hunter Lake be a great idea for future economic development of the city? Yes. Certain industries are looking for ample water supplies to bring light industry to town. Is it something to look at? Yes, it is. But if the costs are so high, I think we need to look at selling it. Or the third alternative is do we make that part of the Springfield Green Initiative and, create bike paths and a nice environment for our citizens to enjoy. So I mean, there's three things. What I will tell you is that I'll make that decision within the first year of my administration.
What I would do is immediately begin dealing with the Army Corps of Engineers and the EPA to get both a timetable in terms of what it's going to take in order to get a permit, and what exactly do we need to do. I have been a supporter of Hunter Lake since day one. I think that we need an alternative water supply in the city of Springfield. But we need to really focus on moving forward with this. And if in fact we're not able to do that, then we only have one other choice. It's not a matter of making it a park. We need to sell that land, because there are bond covenants that require us to use that money for the water department. A park is not part of that plan. I think that as we look at an alternative water supply, one of the things we need to keep in mind is that any alternative water supply that we look at, we are going to have to go through a permitting process. We are going to have to go to the Army Corps of Engineers and the EPA to get permits to do anything that diverts water from any of the areas around us. So it's not a matter that we're just battling the Army Corps of Engineers and the EPA. If we go some other way, we will continue to do that.
Having sat on the city council when we almost did have the drought, where we pumped 5 foot of water in from the South Fork to keep the lake filled, so we didn't have to put on water restrictions, and everybody was griping about us even considering it. I think the second lake is needed. It costs us nothing to leave the land sit there. What we rent the farmland for more than pays up for all the overhead of keeping the ground. I think we ought to keep the ground and pursue it and get a definite cost and then make that decision. If you do sell the land, like Mayor Houston said, it has to be kept in the waterfront. We could rebuild some more mains. That's a needed project. But you'd never be able to sell all the land at once.
Our next question. Mayor Frank Edwards recently enacted a reorganization of the Springfield Fire Department, reducing minimum daily staffing levels from 49 to 46. Would you keep these changes or go back to the old way? And if you do go back to the old way, how would you pay for the increased overtime costs? Mike Coffey?
I would keep the changes that Mayor Edwards has enacted. We're in a financial crisis. You know, one of the things that I came out with was where I was going to make reductions. You know, I was going to eliminate the spokespeople. I was going to eliminate the deputy mayor position, and it's because we are in a financial crisis. We've got to learn to say no. We've got to learn to do more with less, and we can't afford all of this. So I don't think it's, as long as it does not hamper, you know, fire coverage, which I don't think it does. You know, I think we need to go with what Mayor Edwards has done at this point.
My position during this entire process has been that anything that I say is going to affect negotiations between the Mayor Edwards and the Firefighters Union. Therefore, I've not made direct comments about what is going on. But I do think that one of the things we need to keep in mind is that we have a legally binding agreement with the fire union. A legally binding agreement requires both parties to follow it. And I think that one of the things that the city needs to do is to follow that agreement, as does the Firefighters Union.
I think what Mayor Edwards has done is the right thing, is the right start. I think we have some firemen who sit in offices and don't fight fires. I think this next administration is going to have to face facts. There's going to have to be firehouses moved. Right now in the city of Springfield, there's 3 old firehouses, one across from the Armory, one at Edwards and MacArthur, and one at 6th and North Grant. At some time, the politicians finally had the guts to move these firehouses because the city has changed. I think this next administration and city council is going to have to face a very, very hard decision, and some firehouses are going to have to be moved because we've let the city expand too far without the revenue to build a new firehouses.
I believe we cannot jeopardize fire protection in this city at all. I think it's extremely important. We obviously do have to make some tough choices, and I would be sitting down with the firefighters and their representatives and trying to look at what other options we can. I think we need to modernize the fire department. The vast majority of the calls are not for fire, they're for medical-related services, and I do think that we need to look at different ways of doing what we do. But I'm reluctant to make long-term operational decisions at this time. I would sit down with them and open it back up and take a look at it when I got in.
I've been a downtown resident for almost 7 years now, and I heard a lot about how the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library was going to enhance downtown. It seems to me, though, that progress has kind of stalled downtown, and we've kind of seen some businesses close. What are you going to do to get progress started again downtown? Mayor Houston, we'll start with you.
I think that one of the things we have to keep in mind is that the TIF district is going to expire. We will have one of two choices: either implement a new TIF district, taking the equalized assessed valuation where it is, or we need to look for other economic development tools to make something happen within the downtown. As we talk about the downtown, it is both the property tax base and the employment base of the city of Springfield. It is extremely important to our community. So we need to have incentives for people to be able to develop in the downtown area. And so we'll have to look. It may be just a matter of continuing a new TIF, or it may be a matter that we can find some other economic development tools to be able to use.
If you do continue a new TIF, we got to quit putting in street lights and start fixing buildings. I've seen too much, in my 12 years as a alderman, I've seen too much money downtown not really used the right way. It wasn't to try to bring something in there like a store or renovate. We used a lot of it to pave the streets and keep downtown streets and street lights looking nice instead of what it was really meant for, to bring new businesses downtown to raise the dollar value of the buildings. And in fact, we put up the land for the presidential library with the assumption it was going to bring all these millions in, and it didn't. We have to face facts. Our tourism is based on usually a day trip only, and there's only so much money those folks are going to spend. So we've pumped a lot of money into downtown. I think some of it has been thoroughly wasted. So I think we need to go back to giving incentives to redo the stores and stuff.
20 years ago, when I came to this community, our downtown looked like a ghost town. So it has improved, and it does look better. But I've said from the beginning of this campaign that TIFs are just not enough. We've seen that with the downtown area. We've got nice facades, but behind those facades are empty buildings in many cases. We need to support the local businesses that are downtown, the small businesses, help them to thrive. Help Downtown Springfield Inc. and the other types of organizations that are working very hard to try to revitalize downtown. Again, this is one of the strategies that I see in the newly formed Economic Development Department, where we would be looking at ways to different strategies to find from different communities. People other cities are doing this all over, and downtown revitalization efforts, we need to look at the state funds that are available. We need to take advantage of all federal funds that are available, and not just for the downtown, but for the other older neighborhoods as well.
Well, as a downtown business person, I'm very well aware of this fact, and I've been trying to do this. We've got a convention center project that we're committed to spending $16 million for renovation of the Prairie Capital Convention Center. Why is that important? Peoria spent $45 million renovating their convention center. It brings new business to town. It brings people from outside of our community to Springfield. They spend money, they stay overnight, they eat in restaurants, and we generate sales tax dollars that we can in turn reinvest. We've got to stop this deal where we circulate Springfield dollars within Springfield. The way to really increase our revenue is to bring outside people into Springfield and leave their money here. I've been working on this convention center project for, it seems like, a decade, and I would hope that whoever wins this mayor's race will be committed to an expanded convention center so that we can truly compete with other people in central Illinois. I think it's vital. It's a core piece of infrastructure for our tourism.
How do you balance investment in economic development on the west side with redeveloping the east side? Frank?
Well, living on the east side for the last 30-some years, part of what we're going to have to do is the people on the east side are going to have to take some of the initiative themselves. The problem you have is you have businesses that open up on the east side and nobody patronizes them, so they close. Most of the development on the west side is strictly done by private entrepreneurs, and that's what we need to find, somebody who's willing to invest. And we have had people. The Humphreys have invested a ton of money on the east side, and it's worked out very well. The city of Springfield can't do it all. We just don't have the money. So most of your west side development is, like I said, is done with private money. So it would be nice if we could get some leaders, business leaders that would be willing to put up a little bit of money, and we can start block by block. But I think the best thing we're doing right now on the east side is getting rid of all the blighted buildings, and we've tore a ton of them down.
Redevelopment of the East Side has been something that I've been involved with since I came to this community, and it's the success has been, I guess, questionable. There are many, many great areas of the East Side, and I think we need to remember that, and we need to build on the strengths and the assets that the East Side have. There's many churches, there's many schools, there are some very nice neighborhoods on the East Side, and but we need to do more. The city has to make sure that our services are being provided equitably throughout this city and to the East Side. We need to make sure that the infrastructure there is being fixed and repaired. And we need to make sure that our streets are safe, our schools are good. This is the kind of community development work that I'm talking about. It goes beyond just the TIFs, just the sort of physical infrastructure. We have to look at this as a whole picture and bring the community involved, like they have been with this new East Springfield plan that has been unveiled recently, that I think is very promising.
The first thing we need to do is make sure we have the proper infrastructure in East Springfield. Secondly, we need to come up with incentives for development on the east side. One thing that I think may help is that if we do the railroad relocation on 10th Street, we put in a multimodal facility on 10th Street, what kind of new businesses? If we do it right, I think we can bring new businesses to town, warehousing, distribution businesses, and we have to have a mayor that's going to be committed to making sure that develops in East Springfield, and I think that'll solve a lot of the problems.
I think that as we talk in terms of the west side, a lot of the incentives that have been given have involved retail. There's only so much retail in Springfield, and you really don't, when you're putting up a new retail operation, you're generally taking money from someplace else. So the first thing we should do is not incentivize somebody in terms of a retail type of operation. When we think in terms of East Springfield, one of the things we need to do is to put the infrastructure in order to make something happen. If we take a look at the South Grand, which is one of our major entrances coming into the community, it's really just a dilapidated area that the city needs to do something about. We need to start out by Pope and start working our way back towards 11th, doing this a square block at a time. And before you can get someone to make private investment into that area, we need to be able to have the infrastructure there. No one is going to make an investment, particularly residential types of properties, without having the city make an investment in infrastructure. So again, as we talk about an infrastructure plan, it's very important that gets put together.
Well, that concludes this portion of the media panel questioning. We have more from the candidates coming up, including questions submitted by you. Don't go away. You're watching the Springfield mayoral debate on ABC News Channel 20. And welcome back to the Springfield mayoral debate. I'm Jerry Lambert. Our next round of questioning will come from you, the viewer. All last week, we asked you to submit your questions for the candidates, and we've since pre-selected a handful of your questions. And for more on that, here's ABC News Channel 20's Jessica McGee.
Thanks, Jerry. Now, this round of questioning will be answered by just one candidate, and we will offer a rebuttal to another candidate. The order of the questioning and the rebuttals were picked at random. Now, as in the first round of questioning, all responses need to be limited to just 1 minute. Now, our first audience question will go to Sheila Stocks-Smith, and then we will have a rebuttal from Mike Houston. In recent years, the city of Springfield has done a great job and has spent a considerable amount of money to beautify Capitol Avenue in downtown in order to develop a grand promenade towards the State House. Now, if elected, will you continue this effort and see it through to completion, and how will you pay for it?
Well, I think we should continue it. It's we've done a large piece of it, and I know that the next part of it, the next phase of it is to go to 11th Street, which I think is important, that it kind of ties in the East Springfield to, the other part of the city. And I do think it's important. We're going to have to continue to look for ways to do this. I mean, the infrastructure money that we have and state and federal dollars that help pay for these kinds of things, you know, there are many, many priorities out there, and this is one of them, but we have many others out there as well. And it's, again, why we need to really look at how we are doing business and what we are doing and how we do it and how we can do it better so that we can find the resources and aggressively go after the resources that we need to be able to continue these kinds of projects.
The promenade has basically been paid for by the federal government, and one of the reasons that they started at the east and started working west towards the state capitol was to leave the last section right in front of the state capitol with the idea that the state of Illinois would come up with the funding to go ahead and finish it and bringing it up to their literally to their doorstep. I think that as long as this is not being paid for by the city of Springfield, that is something that we should continue on and would look to generate dollars either from the state or the federal government.
Okay, our second question will be directed to Frank Kunz, and then we'll have a rebuttal to Mike Coffey. When free leaf pickup is offered, it seems the city has such a hard time getting the job done in the time allotted, and of course that forces an overtime issue. Considering the city's current financial situation, should Springfield continue to offer free leaf pickup each spring and fall?
My answer to that is yes, because it's not coming out of corporate budget. We charge a 50-cent a month tax on garbage, and that pays for most of it. And then if you don't pick the leaves up, they're going to end up in the sewer, so the sewer department funds the rest of it. We pay none of our guys overtime to pick up the leaves. I think probably if you look at it, a third of the trees sit on city property. I think it's very unfair to ask the citizen to rake the leaves from a tree that the city planted. So it's one thing I would not give up because it's one of the few services people in Springfield get in every neighborhood.
I absolutely agree with Frank. I would not give up that service. It's a service that, as I've gone door to door and talked to people, it's the one service that they don't want to lose. They like their leaf pickup, so I would not be willing to give that up.
Okay, our third question tonight is for Mike Houston, and then a rebuttal from Frank Kunz. Springfield Green has been a quasi-public volunteer project that has encouraged beautification, brought neighbors together, and generated city pride. One of the main purposes has been to beautify the major entrances to the city. Will you continue Springfield Green, and if so, how will you pay for it?
Springfield Green is a project that really does try to beautify the city of Springfield. And let's face facts. Any entranceway that you come into the city of Springfield are generally fairly ugly. I mean, there's just no getting around it. We do not have a good entrance to the city of Springfield. And that is something that we should work on. As we look at Springfield Green, it originally came out of Downtown Springfield Incorporated. It is funded by the private sector or through grants, and I think that you can continue to do that, and I would be a major supporter of Springfield Green. I think they're doing an excellent job.
As long as it's paid for by donations, I have no problem with it. But to take money away from projects fixing streets and sidewalks for scenic Springfield, I would not do that.
Okay, and our final audience question is directed to Mike Coffey, and then we will have a rebuttal from Sheila Stocks-Smith. Most of you have voiced your support of a 10th Street corridor as opposed to a 3rd Street corridor concerning high-speed rail in Springfield. So what are you going to do if elected, if the federal government decides, hey, 3rd Street is the best option? How will you help the city regroup?
Well, we're going to have to do everything in our power to make sure it does not go down the 3rd Street corridor. And why is that? The future growth and our future economic growth is going to be in the medical district. You know, that would greatly hamper any development in the medical district, and we're going to have to do everything in our power to make sure it goes to the 10th Street corridor.
I agree. I have said from the beginning of my campaign that having the tracks go down 3rd Street is really going to hamper not only the medical district and the growth in the healthcare industry, which I have made a centerpiece of my economic development strategy, but just our downtown historic treasures and the downtown as well. So, you know, this is a very complicated effort that we are a part of, and it is at higher levels than we are probably used to being involved in, at least so directly impacted by. I, as mayor, will continue to aggressively work with others, with Senator Durbin, with others who have been working diligently to try to get this to go down the 10th Street corridor. If it doesn't, we're going to have a community conversation to talk about what we do and how the community can decide what we do about this. I mean, I don't think, if it does go down 3rd Street, I don't think Springfield's going to, sink into the sea. It is not the ideal. It is not the ideal option, but we will, we will do the best that we can with it, and we will move forward.
Okay, that concludes our audience participation for the night, and we do want to thank our viewers and also our audience members who generated questions for us. Jerry?
Jessica, thank you very much. So let's go back to Katie Hines for our lightning round.
Jerry, thank you. Our final question of the night is in regards to principles. What is the issue that is most important to you, an issue that you are so passionate about you would not change your stance on for anyone?
Taxes. We're taxed too much, and I will not compromise on taxes like I believe that other people on this stage are willing to compromise on taxes. And I think before we leave here tonight, we need to make sure that everybody is committed to not raising the taxes on the people of Springfield. A lot of people have said they won't do it, but in the past, they've done it time and time again to balance the budget. I will not raise your taxes.
That's easy. I will not raise your taxes either. As we talk in terms of principles, I think that one of the things that we really need to do is to change the attitude and atmosphere within city government, specifically within the Public Works Department and CWLP, so that when we have someone that's coming to the city of Springfield who wants to make an investment in our community, that wants to create a job or retain a job, that we welcome them and we say, what can we do to make this happen? That has not been the attitude within city government, and I will change that attitude as mayor of the city of Springfield.
I guess what I'm most passionate about it, for 12 years I've been an alderman, has been an advocate of open, honest government, and that's the one thing underneath my administration. I've always made myself available to the press, and I always will be, and it'll be honesty in hiring, honesty in giving out contracts. That's the one thing I want. Well, definitely do is you will have an open government in Springfield. Everybody knows what's going on.
I am definitely passionate about restoring trust in government, and I think the way we need to do that is to leave behind the politics that has dominated this city for many, many, many years, and it has permeated city government, and it is. I think the thing that with all the tools and all the strategies and all the great things that we have in Springfield, I think it is the one thing that really keeps us back and keeps us from fulfilling our full promise in the city. So I am very, very committed to making decisions in an independent way and not letting that old style patronage politics in the nonsense that goes along with it being part of city government anymore.
We do actually have time for one more question and would like to put it to you on the issue of police protection, crime and violence on the streets of Springfield. Certainly very much a problem, especially in some areas of town. Do we have adequate staffing levels in the Springfield Police Department, and what would you do to alleviate problems of crime and violence on the streets of Springfield? Begin with Mayor Houston.
I think that one of the things we have to be able to do is to use technology. Where we have high crime areas, one of the things that we're not doing today are using mobile cameras. One of the ways that you can get a handle on what's happening within an area is to put cameras in the area and begin not just using them to record things, but actually monitor the activity within the area so that when there is any type of crime taking place, you can immediately respond. Generally, criminals have a tendency that when there's a focus on them, they begin to look for other areas to move to. And I think that as we talk in terms of providing police protection is basically provided the same way it was 25 or 30 years ago. Again, technology can help us in terms of using the resources that we have. computers within police cars that would allow reports for accidents to be taken, as opposed to having an officer sit there for 30 or 45 minutes filling out a report, is something that frees up manpower that allows that officer to be able to do more patrol. There are a lot of things like that from a technological point of view that we are currently not using.
Having someone just murdered down the block from my house, the cops were there within seconds after it happened. What I would do, I think we need to put more police on the streets and less in the offices. So my focus would be to get as many of the officers out of the offices and patrolling the streets, because you have to have them on the streets to prevent the crime and not come after the crime has been done.
I think that the same thing. I mean, I think we have a fantastic police force, and it's been that, you know, the head count has gone down over the years, and we need to get people that are, you know, as many as we can that are in the working in the you know, the offices and stuff, and get them back on the street. I think we need to really focus on neighborhood policing. The neighborhoods love their neighborhood police officers. They would hate to see them go. I think we could even, you know, again, with the resources, would be able to spruce that up, get more neighborhood police officers out. We need more police on the street, and we need to support our police. We need to help them in their work. And I think we also, as a department, need to look at the data more. We need to look at what our calls for service are and where we're spending our time, and look at ways we can do that better and target our services better.
Well, I think the police do an excellent job. And, you know, just the other day, you know, we had a robbery in our neighborhood. They responded and got the cars back immediately. So they're doing an excellent job. But I do believe we need to make sure that we keep our police force at adequate levels. You know, crime is up in the city of Springfield, you know, due to economic times. So I want to make sure that they have the resources and the manpower they need to fight crime. One other thing that I would do is put a website together so that we know where the criminal hotspots are. You know, there have been a lot of robberies, so that the neighborhoods know, you know, that there's some criminal activity there. They can go on and they can, you know, click online and figure out exactly what's happening in different areas, and make sure that the public's educated. But absolutely, a strong police force is necessary, and I'm not for any more reductions in the police force.
And now back to Jerry to wrap things up.
All right, well, we've come to the final phase of tonight's debate. That's the candidates' closing statements. Well, again, we ask you to limit your remarks to just 1 moment. We'll begin in reverse alphabetical order this time, starting with Sheila Stocks-Smith.
Thank you. As mayor, I will focus on living within our means, creating good jobs, and restoring accountability to government. First, we need to get our house in order. We must balance our budget, streamline government, and reduce excess management, and focus on frontline services like police, fire, and public works. We must also create jobs. Our medical district and growing healthcare industry is at the center of our economic future, and I will make it the city's top economic development priority. We must also restore older neighborhoods and attract people and business back by focusing on economic and community development. And we must reduce barriers like excess regulation and red tape that limit growth and expansion of business, large and small. We have so much potential and yet so much work to do. To realize our hopes for Springfield, we must stop electing the same kind of people and expecting different results. We need to reject the policies and politics of the past and bring new people to the table to help craft the vision for Springfield's future. That's what I plan to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila Stocks-Smith. We now move for closing remarks to Frank Kunz.
I guess all I would ask the people of Springfield is show the new mayor and the new city council who care to please come out and vote in large numbers April 5th. Because if there's one thing, having sat on a city council for 12 years, the low voter turnout very, very much discourages you when it comes to being an elected official. So I ask for everybody to come out April 5th, and of course, if you want an open, honest government, vote for me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kunz. Mike Houston.
The future of our city is at a critical turning point. We must invest in our city and in our neighborhoods. We have to create jobs. We need to put our financial house in order and match expenses against existing revenues. We need to ensure that our police officers and firefighters have the tools necessary to protect us. We need to restore CWLP to the professional organization it once was. We need to develop an infrastructure plan to deal with our streets and sewers. We need to take back our core inner-city neighborhoods, one abandoned building at a time. We need to rebuild East Springfield. We need to ensure that high-speed rail has the least impact on our community and our neighborhoods. We need to bridge the racial divide that currently holds back our community's potential. I'm not running for mayor because I need a job or I'm building my resume. I'm running for mayor because it's time to get serious about dealing with the serious problems facing this community, and those problems go far beyond balancing the budget. My plan is to serve one term, and I will commit the next 4 years of my life to solving the problems of the city of Springfield. I'm Mike Houston, and I ask for your vote on April 5th.
Mr. Houston, thank you very much. Our final candidate of the night, Mike Coffey.
Thank you. This election comes down to a choice between change versus more of the same. My opponents are all well-intentioned. However, they won't deliver the change we urgently need. The former mayor was happy to support many tax increases, balloon spending, and increased debt. The former education liaison has received nearly $100,000 in campaign funds from pro-tax and spend politicians and outside special interest groups, including Chicago and Metro East law firms. While I appreciate the alderman's service, he has contributed to the mess we're in now, and he's not the one to fix it. I bring a fresh, new approach to city government. My plan is to audit and open up the books at City Hall, increase transparency so all citizens can be in the know, and focus on creating jobs and a better economy. Coffee means change. All the others are more of the same. I'm Mike Coffey, and I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
To all four candidates, thank you very much. Well, we'd like to take a moment to thank the University of Illinois at Springfield, including the college Republicans and college Democrats, for the use of the auditorium tonight. And we want to thank you, the viewer, for your participation in this mayoral debate. Well, if you missed any of the questions and answers from tonight's debate, ABC News Channel 20 will rebroadcast the debate. Now, you can catch a replay on Saturday, March 26th at 1 p.m., or Sunday, the 27th at 10:35 following our Nightside News. And be sure to check out our new special mayoral website. That's at wics.com/election. There you'll find information on each of tonight's candidates, as well as portions of tonight's debate. And of course, don't forget, Election Day is 2 weeks from today. Make sure you get out the vote on April 5th, or you can take advantage of grace period voting at the Sangamon County Election Office until March 29th. Our vote absentee until April 4th. There's plenty of chance to make your voices heard. Well, thank you, candidates, for your participation in tonight's debate. Good luck to each one of you as we head into the home stretch. Thanks for watching. Have a great night, everyone. Have a good evening. Thank you very much.